Hey everybody, it's Doug Bossi. Wanted to talk about Red Alert and what the song meant to me, and getting a chance to redo it has been a exciting venture here lately. David Garfield, great piano player, keyboardist, came into town, visit us in Nashville, and he and great drummer named Billy Freeman, who's out with Dustin Lynch, but can play any style of music. Great drummer. The three of us kind of just came up with an arrangement of Red Alert, and it's written by Tony Newton, who was the original bass player with Tony Williams in the Lifetime band. And so I interviewed Tony, which will follow this intro. We recorded pretty much the whole song live. I did a couple guitar overdubs, and we did a version with both a piano solo and a synth solo. And then we asked our friend John Pena, a great bass player from Lobotomies, Les Lobotomies, to overdub the bass on it. So we did a close to 7-minute version of this thing. But I had a great interview with Tony Newton. He also had a great beginning of his career replacing James Jamerson and playing with, Smokey Robinson and all the Detroit Motown artists, Aretha Franklin. So his career has been pretty amazing, and I have a great interview with him coming up right now. Hope you enjoy it.
I'm super thrilled that you could join me today.
Oh, well, thank you, Doug. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I'm a big fan. Just want to start this off by saying to everybody out there in YouTube land, Tony Newton is legendary on the bass. He started his career, I just catching up on this part myself, actually, from watching interviews with you. But he started his career over at Motown, replacing the great James Jamerson, playing with Smokey Robinson, Aretha Franklin, many people. And then I had heard your name as a kid buying the Believe It album from Tony Williams, which is why I wanted to interview you today about not only the Red Alert song that you wrote, but just your experience with them. So before we get started, I wanted to quickly share my screen just so you could see this too. This is you back in the day,
Right.
on the left, man, and some great shots there. And I just quickly wanted to kind of show people the perspective of, this is like 76, right?
Yeah,
70.
right.
So I'm going to let you talk. I'm just going to tell you, I'm a huge fan. I took a lesson with Allan Holdsworth years ago when I lived in LA. I'm now in Nashville. But Allan was great. We barely touched. I don't play piano. I play guitar, as you know. But we just talked conceptually about music, and he also had fond things to say about that time. So anyway, I'll leave it to you. Tell me how you got the gig and your whole experience.
Okay, so to start with the Lifetime, I had just moved to Los Angeles in '75, and I was playing a lot of sessions. But I'm also an artist or group artist, right? So I called some of my friends so I could find out what was happening and who was looking for who. So I called Michael Henderson, bassist. He was playing with Miles at the time, right? They were doing the Jack Johnson album, and I told him I was looking for something to get into. And I guess he must have called Ralph Armstrong, who was playing with John McLaughlin. All of us are from Detroit, right? So he said, yeah, I know some that 40 cats have tried out for the gig. Even Jocko and Jeff Berlin had tried out for the gig. And so I sent him a cassette tape with snippets of different things that I had played on, right? And they flew me into New York, and as they say, the rest is history. We played, and the rest is history. And the reason why I got the gig instead of Jocko or Jeff Berlin is because I play in the pocket. And these guys solo their ass off, but when it comes to the playing in the pocket, that's a whole nother world.
You and Tony groove so well together.
That's what I'm saying. He needed somebody to lock it down so he could do his thing, because he's ambidextrous, right? And so he don't need nobody playing a bunch of notes. He needed somebody to lock it down And as you just mentioned, we played very well together, and we locked in so many ways, regardless of what we're playing. We locked in tight, right? So going from there, we all were Trekkies, Star Trekkies, watched Star Trek, and even Allan, he watched it a lot, right? So I'm watching Star Trek one night, and the red alert sound comes on, whoop, 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 right from Star Trek. I said, oh, that's interesting. And I like the energy of the people, the intensity and the high energy of the way people were acting during that time, because they need to get their shit together, right? Because somebody was going to attack them or something. They were in danger. Yeah. So I was very much inspired directly from that. And I didn't have to think about the bass line or the line. They kind of just flowed through me. Now, what happened after we got together as a group, Tony said, okay, everybody go home and bring back some ideas, right? And so that was the time when I came up with these ideas of Snake Oil and Red Alert and those pieces, right? And it was it flowed. I didn't have to think about it much. And what we did when we played, whoever bought in the idea, we would explore the idea and get the most out of it, and just play the shit out of it until.
Well, it definitely rocked, which is what I loved about the early Allan Holdsworth sound, the way you guys all played together, the way you had the fourths.
Oh, yeah, that's what I forgot to tell you. You don't know this, but there is a book. I've written 15 books on quintal and quartal harmony, right? Mm-hmm. And so this was my first piece using quartal harmony. But I didn't realize what was going on until 84. That's when I discovered the whole system, because I started writing, composing at the piano. And then one day I started playing fifths, and I said, oh, damn, there's a whole nother world in this. And just like the interval fourths and fifths, they're invertible. And so the same thing happens with the harmony system, right? And so I've written over 200 pieces to this day, and the symphony using the quintal and quartal harmonies. And it's a whole nother world within that dimension of sound, right? And it surprised me. Schoenberg had written some things in fourths, but nobody, and Hindemith as well, but nobody covered the full range. And so what I did initially, about there's consonance and dissonance. And so I'm a strong believer of composing with color. So I brought in the middle ground of transonance, which means passing. So I had stable chords as consonant, passing chords, and unstable dissonant chords, right? And I looked at them as color.
I remember Holdsworth was a big Schoenberg fan too. And did you guys ever speak about classical music together? And
all the time. But I'm the only one. I actually went back to school, right, and learned about, and I studied damn near every composer in history. Wow. Beethoven was writing in fifths on his deathbed. A lot of people don't know that.
Wow, interesting.
He had tapped into that, and he was on his way, right? And then we got Debussy, and Hindemith's book has quintal and quartal chords in it, but it doesn't cover. I found 15,000 of them, right? There are 13,000 tertian chords, and there's 15,000 quintal and quartal chords. And I still I still explored that dimension and composed with them all the time. And because I like standard chords, but I think evolution needs to happen in everything, right? Right.
Yeah. I mean, I was a young teenager hearing that record, and what got me was the mix of the rock feel, but with jazz and classical influences, and then the way that you played with Tony with the groove, but then Alan Pasqua would play his colors, and then of course Alan was like, everybody was like, who is that at the time, right?
Right, he was over the top. Now, do you know why Alan plays that way? Because most people don't know.
Well, I mean, it was a Coltrane, right? He was a big Coltrane fan.
No, that's not it. He played violin. And you can hear this on his CTI album, his first album, right? You can hear him playing both violin and guitar, and they sound the same. So what happened, the bow technique, where you're not picking every note, that's where his legato style comes from.
Interesting. Yeah, because I had heard he bought a secondhand violin, and within 8 months he was pretty proficient on it.
He's very proficient on violin. Like I say, get that CTI album and you'll hear him playing both instruments, but he plays them both in the same way, right? Which is really amazing. But that's the case of somebody transferring one technique to another instrument, because nobody else has really done anything close to that in history. And so Alan was a true gift to the music world by doing that. He's opened up a whole world for guitar.
Amen. Yeah.
Showing
I was
have to pick every note, right?
Yeah, I was listening to one of the interviews, and you had this really cool story where you're in New York, you're at a bar, you're with Tony Allen, and you guys are watching Ron Carter's gig.
Yeah,
and it was upright. And you looked at Tony and you go, "Are we going to be doing this?
Play this, right?" Right.
He goes, "Oh no,
we're going to be playing." He says, "Oh no, right?" And so when we got together, we just played, right? And so everything was so comfortable and natural. The four of us, initially it was the three of us, Alan, Tony, and myself. And then Tony brought in Alan Pasqua, right? But we all had a natural, we didn't work hard at playing anything. Everything.
Yeah, it felt pretty effortless when you listen to the music. It's like you guys had this thing together as a core unit. I mean, how was, besides jamming together and then coming in with songs, how was the recording process? Like, where did you guys, do you remember?
Now, that's a very interesting question, and I have the answer. Believe it, we wanted to make the record as hot as it could be. So the decision was made, okay, well, we'll go out and tour for 3 weeks and play everything we're going to play on the album before we record. So when we go into the Columbia studios, it was effortless, right?
That's cool.
Been touring, playing the stuff, right? And so, and to this day, that's why I would say that's why that album has that stamp of timelessness to it, right? Because we played the stuff and we're so tight before we went into the studio that it made it natural, and the recording captured it all, right?
Did you record it all in one day, or was it a week? Or was it a?
It was a week. It was a week.
But sounds great.
We took our time, but it wasn't like take 20 or 15 or anything.
Yeah. No, it feels great. It's such a classic record.
Right. Yeah, it was. We probably did everything within the 4 to 5 takes, if not 2 or 3, right? And
you think, Bitches Brew and some of the early Miles stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, after that, to me and a lot of guys, this record kind of is a stamp of like what fusion. It's like an early fusion. Right. Especially the rock.
Yeah, especially the rock, because Return to Forever and Weather Report and even the Maya Vishnu, like you mentioned, we had more of the rock element, and that was because Tony played hard, and Allan was doing the rock thing, right? And so it was natural, right?
I wish I could go back in time and watch you guys. It must have been such a thrill to see I see pictures on of you guys playing live, but to see the live show must have been amazing.
And the guy that put the picture up, he said he was there at, I think that was the Iowa concert. And he said one of his friends took the picture, but that he was there at the concert. Because everywhere we played, it was always packed and sold out, right? Wherever we played. And so we were very fortunate when it came to that, because I remember hearing one time when we were off, I remember hearing Snake Oil on the radio. And so we were getting a lot of radio airplay, right?
Interesting.
And so I think that's what made our audience so broad. But it was on the jazz stations, right?
Yeah.
And so, but can you imagine Snake Oil being played on a jazz station, right? But they did it. There's
really another cool Detroit pair of brothers that I got to play with in LA for a while, the Bissonette brothers, and Greg was a huge.
Right, Greg
was a huge, influenced by Tony. He took lessons with Tony at one point, and he and I when we first got together, one of the first things we played was the riff to Red Alert, and all those songs are so timeless, really. Tony and you, how was Tony and you in the studio? Like, was Tony very specific, or was he kind of more like Miles?
No. Tony didn't tell anybody what to play. Right? We worked it out when we were getting together, rehearsal. We'd play one thing, and if something didn't work, we'd play something else until we found what actually worked. But it wasn't a lot of effort. Really, it was just a matter of finding the right place within the music that we could lock down, right? And that's what we did. And Tony's probably I've been on some other sessions, regular recording commercial music where they'll let you play whatever you want, but not ever in a group situation like this. And so it was very thrilling to be creative in that way, in that situation, right?
Do you remember your bass rig back then at all?
I had a P bass, and I had two of my own personal design speaker cabinets, because I had invented, they were called transonic speaker bass speaker cabinets. I had them for guitar and bass, and they never made it to market, but they did do the tour with us. And I had them with Gary Moore as well, right? And they had two ports, a port at the top and a port at the bottom, and two 15s in each cabinet, right? And
it's a great bass sound on there, and it really fit in with his Gretsch.
So that's a combination of direct bass and the mic bass, right? And that's how we was able to get that sound. So the P bass came in pretty. I was playing a BC Rich at sometimes. But for the Believe It album, it was all the P bass.
Man, that's incredible. Well, I know you're going to be off, I think next week, right? You're doing a Detroit.
This week, no, tomorrow.
Motown Legends. Tell everybody what you're up to out there.
So there's a Motown museum, and they have a Motown Bass Day every year. Now, I think it's bass players from all around the world. I know they're definitely from all around the country. And so it'll be interesting because I've been trying to find out, what goes on that day. And so what somebody told me was that there's a house band, and then certain bass players are called up, and they do their thing. Now, my thing because I'm one of the there's only two of us Funk brothers that are left. It's Jack Ashford and myself, right? And so So my strongest point in that situation is a tribute to Jamerson, because as far as I know, I haven't seen anybody using the rake technique on the bass. There's a lot of great players,
You're
but
right.
they don't use the rake technique. And if
Yeah.
now the rake technique comes from playing upright. That's where Jamerson got it, right? Because he played tuba. A lot of people don't know that he played tuba, and then he switched over to upright. And with the upright, you have to use the rake technique, right? And so when there was a time in Motown when the upright switched over to the electric, because the electric became more popular and powerful for commercial records, right? And so that's where I learned the whole raking technique. It's from him. And so, and as you mentioned, I'm still probably the closest one that plays like Jamerson using those techniques, because some of those techniques, you can't do them unless you do use the rake technique, or you use your knuckles, you know, to, let me see. So, let me see if I can get this up high enough.
Oh, yeah.
You can see.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, that's
right. And so, and if I'm doing stuff like it, right, that's all rake technique. And
wow, that's great.
So it requires. Now I'm having problems these days with my hands. I don't know, because of old age or whatever. We're trying to figure it out, me and the doctors, because I can't seem to play as fast as I used to. And so, but we're getting down to the nitty gritty, whatever it is, right? And so that I can get back to playing as fast as I know that I can, right? but these two fingers are not playing as fast as they could, right?
Yeah.
And so,
well, on behalf of all the musicians out there that enjoyed all your work throughout all the time that you've recorded with so many people and so many genres, this particular record for me was pretty inspirational in my development as a musician as well. So thank you for all your, amazing work. For everybody out there, how can they get a hold of you or listen to more of your music? Do you have a website that you want to tell them about?
Well, there's music on my website, but my YouTube channel has over 130 songs that I've played on.
That's awesome.
From all types of people. Now, I've probably recorded over 1,000 recordings with various people because there was times, when I was in Detroit, there was damn near a studio on every corner, right, during the big boom of recording and records. But then when I moved to Los Angeles, I'd be doing 2 or 3 sessions a day. It could be from Mamas and Papas, the Motown, or the Jackson 5, or Little Richard. And so,
it's funny. It's funny you mention that, because you've had a rare career where you got to play with so many legends in music, and you know what it's like to get in a room, and I do as well, with musicians, and then this chemistry thing happens. There's so much buzz about AI music now, and talk about AI music.
I understand.
But there's nothing's ever going to replace that.
And nothing's going to ever replace consciousness, right?
Yeah.
So the reason why I've played on so many recordings is I know what to bring to whatever music I'm playing. I tune into the song. I tune into the writer, whatever their vision is. I learned all of that in Detroit, right, by playing with Motown and playing with because I was playing with Johnny Hooker and T-Bone and Jimmy Reed, all the blues guys before I got with Motown. And that's where they found me, playing with
That's cool.
Johnny Hooker, right, and so. I learned early in the recording business, that's why they hire you, because they know what you bring to the table. You're going to make the song come alive, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a thing that seems to elude a lot of musicians, right? They know what they can play, but when it comes to playing the right thing for a particular song, that's a whole nother world, another way of thinking. But once you become at one with the music and understand it, then you know what the music needs, and you know what you can do and what you can bring to the table. And that's why you hear me play like on Mr. DJ by Aretha, or did you know that there's 2 basses on Stop the Name of Love, Where Did Our Love Go, Baby Love, Reach Out, and Nowhere to Run?
No, I did not.
Yes, Brian Holland and Dozier, they were experimenting with 2 basses and 3 guitars. And that's what's on these recordings, right? But
wow.
We sound like one player, but if you listen to them closely, you can hear both of us playing, right?
Wow, that's cool. I'm still catching up with the rest of the Tony Williams stuff. It's such a deep record that you can listen to it over and over and hear new things, which is what I love about that era of your playing. But, it's also inspiring to kind of go back now and research a lot of your Motown work and all those records and, things that you've done as well. So, thank you so much for your time today, buddy. It's been really nice to meet you.
And honor. And anything that comes up that you want to know, just ask. Now, I don't know if you heard any of the Gary Moore stuff from G-Force.
No, I have to go back and research that. I was a huge Gary Moore fan. You know,
check that out.
I first heard Gary with Thin Lizzy, before he did solo stuff. I was who's this guy?
This was between his solo thing and Thin Lizzy. I think it was 1980.
Wow.
That G-Force happened, right?
I'll go check that out.
YouTube. Yeah, the whole thing. Now, I played totally different when I was with them, right? But it's the same thing. I was in the group because I could lay down the pocket, right? And so it's with Gary and Mark Nassif playing drums, and we were still tight, and you will hear some of that tightness on that recording as well, that album, right?
I'm going to go check that out. I have one last question about the Tony Williams experience. What was it? Were you guys all in the same room facing each other recording, or an ISO booth?
No. Tony would be in the center of the room, and then we would be on the outside, but the amps would be in the isolation booths, right? So we could still, if we needed to watch each other, which we didn't, because we'd be just playing the music. We wasn't, you see, I see so many of these people, these musicians, they're on stage and you got looking at each other, grinning and all of that. What the, just play the damn music. Get into the music. It ain't about you smiling, looking at the other person. It's about you getting deep into the music so that you feel it so deep, you're at one with it. And, it's surprising how many people don't know about ahead of the beat, on the beat, and behind the beat.
Yeah.
It's so many musicians that don't even give that consideration when in actuality, in reality, every artist has this place on the beat. Like James Brown stuff is on top of the beat. Stevie's is right there. Maybe Supremes or somebody, their stuff is a little behind the beat, right? Like maybe Mamas and Papas, right? Their stuff is a little behind the beat. And so everybody's got their own little groove and in time. And that's one of the magical things, that once you've tuned into it, then you can really bring something to that particular composition, right?